Okay, hello everyone and welcome to the third video in this updated COVID-19 playlist. We've got here the media versus science. Okay, now this obviously could be a huge all-encompassing video on lots of different scientific topics, but obviously we're sticking specifically to within the field of COVID-19, or we would be here all day. And the first point I would like to make to you is that journalists are not science specialists. Okay, very, very rarely do you get specialist science journalists, and if a story is big enough, it tends to get passed on to star reporters and star journalists who probably haven't come through a scientific background. So as far as their ability to understand and convey science goes, they are not specialists in that area, which obviously creates a bit of a problem. Okay, I personally wish they would leave science communication to science communicators, to science, and obviously, you know, if you want, people like me. Right, so anyway, moving on. Right, in terms of the media versus science, I think the fundamental problem with us and with COVID-19 as with all other topics is it comes down to the questions that they're asking, right? They're looking for different things. The scientific methods of what science is, right, is getting really accurate answers to highly specific questions. Now, if you've studied any science, you'll know the first thing you have to do is make a really specific hypothesis, a really specific question that you can test. Okay, and then you get a really specific answer to that question. Okay, you basically do a test that answers that question. It may imply or suggest more general things, right? But really your science has answered that specific question with a certain degree of confidence. So you can go, oh, I've done my statistics and I know I'm 95% confident that this is actually what's going on. Okay, now in the media, journalism, reporting, right, well, they want simple answers, headline-grabbing answers to very broad questions, things that people are going to be interested in, they're going to inform the public discourse, and so on and so forth. And you can already see there's a bit of a conflict there, right? They want sort of discussion and perhaps debate and BBC balance or whatever it might be. Okay, now you can obviously see there's a little bit of tension there already. And then when you add politicians in and a governmental response, it tends to be they always have an eye on re-election. So they want popular answers to unpopular questions, right? They want to be seen to be being good leaders and solving countries' problems. Of course they do. And I'm not levelling this at any particular party or government here. And although the current lot are particularly good at the last two things here, which is making excuses for failure and shifting blame. Right, because obviously they've always got an eye on elections. What's their sort of go-to? Well, they want to remain in power. They want to get elected the next time, so they've got to put a positive spin on pretty much anything that they do. So already there's some different things that these three groups are looking for, and in something like COVID-19, you've got the three been pushed together, and they don't necessarily make the happiest of bedfellows, right? And so therefore there's a communication issue that needs to be addressed. That's why science communication is so important, I think. Okay, so let's look at some misunderstood terms. And all three groups here are guilty of some misunderstood terms, of assuming that when they're using phrases from their particular experience and their particular profession, that the others are and the general public are understanding. Okay, so let's look at some of the things the scientists say. When the scientists say, we don't have data on that, right? And I'm talking particularly about where people go, well, do the vaccines work particularly well we've done this vaccine trial, you say it works brilliantly. What about in old people? What about in children? What about in pregnant women? Is there a difference between ethnic groups? Is there this, that, and the other? Now, it might be that the test didn't specifically look at those questions, that it looked overall, and the data they've got is for the test group that they used, okay? So the scientists would respond with, well, we don't have the data for that specific question, okay? Now, it might well be that, well, yeah, it does work for those groups because there was a bunch of people in there so yeah, we're reasonably confident, but the answer they would give, and the accurate scientific answer would be, we don't have the data to answer that. So we don't have specific data on whether or not it prevents hospitalizations in over 80-year-olds in whatever it is, right? Because we didn't get a group of over 80-year-olds and test them for hospitalization, right? It might be that kind of thing. So what they mean is literally the above. So when you hear a scientist saying, well, we don't have the data for that, right? It means we don't have the data for that. It doesn't mean this doesn't work, right? It doesn't mean no, right? Which again is a common sort of usage misunderstanding. Oh, I don't know the data for that. Oh, I don't know. It doesn't mean no, right? obviously pretty confident that these vaccines and the evidence coming out more and more and more supports that it works in absolutely everybody and brilliant at lowering infection and lowering hospitalizations and all that kind of stuff. And the same would be true of any other health intervention, okay? And to say we don't know is not to say, or that question hasn't been asked, is not to say this thing doesn't work, which is often how it's reported, okay? And that is simply not the case, okay? We're 99% confident. Now, in science, we use confidence limits. We use these confidence limits where basically we know that if another study comes along later, next week, next year, whatever, that completely refutes what you're saying, well, it's very easy to disprove something, but it's impossible to prove something with absolute certainty. So we use what's called confidence limits. We basically do enough testing until we're either 95, 99, 99.9% confident that the thing we're seeing is what's happening, right? So we go, well, there's uncertainty in this. Of course, there's going to be error and uncertainty in every experiment, but it's so low that we're happy to say, yeah, you know, we're confident that this is going on, okay? What that means is normal scientific process has been applied. What it doesn't mean is we're not sure. I know when in common parlance we go, well, I'm 95% on that. It often means I'm a little bit uncertain, right? It means, oh, I'm not sure, right? Not what it means in a scientific context, okay? What it means is the normal scientific process has been undertaken, and we've crossed a bar, crossed a hurdle that scientists set ourselves for a level of certainty that we require before we publish something. Okay, and that's what those things mean. And again, scientists are guilty of using these terms in a way that people in the general public, politicians, media, won't understand. Okay, but that's what those terms mean. Okay, and I'll give you an example where this went horribly wrong. It's where France decided that they wouldn't use the AstraZeneca, and then you turned on this, that they wouldn't use the AstraZeneca vaccine in over 65s. Because when they asked AstraZeneca, does it work? You know, they said, well, we don't have the data on that because we haven't done a specific study on this, right? We haven't actually specifically looked at that age category. We don't have the data yet because the vaccine's only existed for 5 minutes on your specific cohort, right? And obviously, President Macron there and the French government decided that that meant we're not sure, oh, it's a bit dodgy, and said, no, we're not doing it in over 65s until the data came out last week that showed that actually it was really good at lowering infection. And now we obviously have a specific answer to that question. They've gone, all right, and then gone back on it, and now we'll use the AstraZeneca vaccine. Okay, so this sort of misconception of that phrase has led to this potential diplomatic incident, and lots of people sort of chalked it down to other things between our government and theirs and all that kind of political stuff, right? So let's look at the politicians. Now, this could be a list as long as your arm, right? Terms that politicians use that are mealy-mouthed and a little bit sort of inaccurate, but I'm only going to stick to ones that have been used specifically with COVID, of course. So, we are following the science has been used an awful lot, okay? That means, right, as far as I can tell, we are using scientists as a shield, okay? What it doesn't mean is the scientists told us to do it. Right, the way scientific advice works is that the scientists do these experiments, and there are lots of them that sit on panels and sit on committees and bring the latest evidence, and they basically come together and then present, here is the latest information on these questions to the government. And it's not their job to say, right, you have to do this. You have to, because they're not the elected representatives of the people, right? The decision on what it means, on what has to be done, on things like who needs to go into a lockdown for how long, what can open, what can't open. These are political decisions, right? These are decisions made by leadership, elected leaders, right? So where an elected leader then goes, oh, well, you know, I was just following the science, scientists will not have said anything about, specifically about you should do this thing and not that thing. And that. They might have given advice and said, if you do this thing, infections will move to this. If you do that thing, infections will move to this. It is likely that if you do this, that will happen, okay? But the final decision is with politicians, okay? So we are following the science is, I think, a very, very deliberate, possibly, misunderstanding of what scientific advice is, and is a way for politicians to use scientists as shields, okay? to the best of our knowledge. Now this, I'm going to stick up for the politicians here a little bit, because that is a phrase that literally means to the best of our knowledge. Okay. Now their knowledge might be really bad on whatever they're talking about, or it might be really good. Okay. So it doesn't mean we're absolutely certain, and it doesn't mean we have no idea. It really depends on how much knowledge the person speaking has. Okay, of course. So when they say to the best of our knowledge, and people report that as this person, this politician said that this was the case, or this person said that this definitely wasn't the case, that's not the case. It's not true. Okay, and this is basically something that's picked up by Nature, leading scientific journals, and I particularly like the sort of phrasing here. So politicians may present themselves as merely implementing scientific advice, but Alex Stevens, who's a science writer, argues that when science meets politics, it can be a case of survival of the ideas that fit. Okay, so the phraseology down here, we're just following the scientists' the claim the UK ministers have repeatedly made in justifying the decisions on how to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. These decisions include when to begin and end stringent social distancing and whether to tell people to wear face masks. Ministers get this advice through a complex network of scientific advisory committees, but to rely on science as the determining influence on policy is to misunderstand what science is and the process of organising knowledge for policy. Okay, that I think is absolutely spot on as to the point I'm trying to make. So what's the solution then? Okay, what's the solution here? Well, for me, I think that we should expect better journalism. We should expect journalists who are going to present these ideas to have a better ability to present scientific ideas. And media outlets should use science communicators, right? They should use science communicators to convey scientific ideas, not rocket science. So that's on them. But what's on you and on me and on everybody else is the following. We all should be better at interpreting data, right? We all should be better at looking behind and saying, okay, so why is this data being presented to me in this way? What is your bias? What's that? Why are you doing this? Have an attention span longer than a headline, right? With a sort of marketplace for news in social media and on the internet, which basically relies on clicks. Okay, you know what clickbait is. You know that the attention span grabbing headline, right, is there to get you to click on the link, right? If you've got an attention span longer than the headline, you can actually read the article, maybe even read the sources, that will be better, then you'll have a much better, more balanced view of what has actually been said. Learning to spot false claims and bias. Of course, everyone's got an agenda. Everyone has their own set of biases, which we'll try and fight against, right? So learn to spot false claims, learn to spot bias. Be critical about the information that you're hearing, and that includes information that comes from people like me, okay? Be critical. Think for yourself about what it is I'm presenting to you and whether or not you agree with it, okay? And be careful that the data supports the claim being made. If we've got things like we're 99% certain, that does not mean we are not certain, okay? As they're not the same thing, okay? And if you've got someone saying to the best of my knowledge, well, dig a little further. What is that person's knowledge? If they are talking about virology and they're an eminent virologist from one of the UK's leading universities, the best of their knowledge is probably pretty good. If they're saying to the best of my knowledge and it's a question of virology and you're Boris Johnson, your knowledge is next to zero, right? So that I think is the solution, and that if we can sort that out, we'll have a much better understanding of the science through the media. But obviously, you know, these are my thoughts, and you can obviously disagree as much as you can. Learn to interpret information for yourself. So next up, we're going to talk about tests, and I'll see you then. Thanks very much.